Hello and welcome to All in Motion. I'm your host, Jake. Thank you all for taking the time to tune in. Also want to thank our new co-host, Scar City. Happy to have you part of the team, sir. This is episode 32, College, AmeriCorps, and Beyond. Our next guest, we have known some time. I met her on Clubhouse. She helps facilitate and moderate our rooms. She has a very, very powerful story, shares some of her challenges and how resilient she has been and what she's doing now and how she soon will be able to help us out here on AIM. Very excited about this episode because not only do we have an amazing guest, we also have a surprise guest. That's right, a surprise, ladies and gentlemen, first time here on AIM. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Angelique Latham. Hello, welcome to All Emotion. As we do another one, I just want to say hello and thank you everybody for joining in. We have a special guest here today. Before we get to her, I just want to introduce, obviously, as you might already know, Scarcity, our co-host. Sir, take it away and let everybody know a little bit about you before we get started with our guest.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. This is Scar City. I'm a partner of All in Motion, cybersecurity expert, music business consultant. Looking forward to this interview.
Thank you, sir. And everybody, I introduce Angelique Latham. So welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, and you?
Good. Well, before we get into it, I just want to introduce our All Emotion audience. You know, Scar City and myself, and just want to give you a little brief introduction about yourself, and then we'll just dive in and we'll get it rolling.
My name is Angelique Latham. I went to OSU. My major was communications. I graduated last May. I briefly did AmeriCorps, but now I'm a legal assistant at a law firm. I plan on attending grad school. I'm hoping for film school. That's my main focus. So yeah, that's me.
Angelique, just dive right in. What is AmeriCorps? Why you, and how that all planned out, paved out, and then we'll get into some of the more of the details if that's cool.
Absolutely. So yes, AmeriCorps is basically a service program. It's to make it make sense, it's somewhat similar to Peace Corps, but it's the domestic version. AmeriCorps is a government organization that works with local and national partners to help tackle some of the country's most pressing challenges with poverty. And so essentially, what you do is you could do a summer term or you could do a year term, and you partner or you work for a nonprofit and you tackle a specific social justice issue. Yeah. And, it's a service program, meaning you're not really salaried and you don't have any benefits. But the idea is you'll either leave and you'll enter into the nonprofit sector or you'll go back to school. So, yeah, that's what AmeriCorps is.
And just jump in there real quick, Angelique. How you doing this evening?
Good.
This is Scar City. So good to speak to you again. So what was the duration of AmeriCorps? I had a lot of friends that actually went there. What was the duration that you were there?
Yeah, so when I finished from college, I ended up doing a summer term. With that, I was with the one particular nonprofit for from June to September. And then after that, I ended up becoming a part of a Vista program, which is a year-long program. I started that program in November and I was supposed to finish by October 2023, but I ended up leaving and I only stayed there for about 4 months. So I started in October, but I ended up leaving in January to start my new position. And essentially, I work for a particular nonprofit. Not sure if I should say its name, but it's a nonprofit that focuses on helping people who are recently incarcerated and just released re-enter into the workforce and gain skills so they can be gainfully employed. And
Right.
basically, I was to help that nonprofit apply for grants, help run classes for the former inmates who needed to learn technology skills, and just assist whatever was needed, essentially.
Absolutely. And being that, you know, we're just coming fresh off of a pandemic, approximately 3 years since that first started with COVID-19. How was it like being in college during those years? Because I have some interesting stories from a few friends that have finished college in the last year or so, and I'm just curious as to what that experience was like, being that you were in there during the pandemic.
Yes, first I'll have to say it's very awkward. Awkward in the sense that, I campus was pretty much dead. There wasn't this thing of, oh, go eat at, a particular campus restaurant or a particular food center. That wasn't a thing. Couldn't go work out in the gym, couldn't interact with other students on, outside of a computer. My classes, student activities, everything was 100% online. And with that, it made it difficult to do internships, because I wasn't able to do internships or get as involved with student activities. It made it a lot harder to find, different employment opportunities once I graduated, which was a part of the reason why I thought AmeriCorps would be a good move.
Hey, Angelique, and so like, listen, I don't want to. I'm going to get right into it, and I know we spoke about it before, but with this process and everything you have going on in your life, and I know you shared this with me and some other individuals, but definitely, during this process, living below the poverty line, and I really want to say thank you for being transparent and open, and wanting you to come share an all emotion about that.
Absolutely. I'll get right into it. One of the, actually, this was the single most determining factor as to why I ended up leaving AmeriCorps. So the key to AmeriCorps is that, you are to live below the poverty line. So every 2 weeks, I would get a check of $500 or $600, but that was it. And as living, on your own, trying to pay rent, groceries, that is not enough to suffice. With that, I was only making about 14,000 a year. It was difficult. It was difficult in the sense of, I had to, most of, what I earned went towards my rent and my bills. After that, I struggled to, just be able to buy basic groceries. And it was really difficult for me because I didn't have a car, and every day I had to pay for transportation. Every day I had to pay for, a lunch. I had to bring a lunch with me. I had to, buy certain clothes to wear to, my job. It was extremely difficult. And I remember having a conversation with the supervisor at the time, to which she said, well, why don't you apply for food stamps? That particular comment rubbed me the wrong way, because from my perspective, I'm working. I'm working 40 hours a week, and yet I'm having a conversation with the supervisor that I need to apply for food stamps. That just didn't sit right with me. I was putting in what, most people put in for, a typical 9 to 5, but I wasn't getting paid that, and I wasn't getting benefits of it. I knew I had to leave. I couldn't continue to barely not have any money. There are things that I want to do in my life, I want to be able to eat comfortably. I want to be able to move to a nice apartment. I want to be able to have a car. I want, just basic things that most people within this country are able to get. That idea that I have to struggle just to get the bare minimum, it didn't sit right with me. I struggled for 4 months just to barely survive. It wasn't good for my mental health. So I ultimately made the decision to leave.
That's tough, especially in the early stages of your career, right? When you're coming out of learning, training and writing all those papers, MLA style, and all these different things. It's difficult in trying to transition into your career. So I could totally relate to that, Angelique.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you brought that up, because I was also thinking, I'm a college graduate. I should not be living below the poverty line.
Right.
That was another reason why I decided to, exit out of AmeriCorps and get a real job. Because it was at that point where I'm like, I'm a college graduate. I graduated cum laude. There's no reason why I finished college and I have to apply for food stamps. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's defeats the purpose of going there, right? Where it's supposed
Yes.
to be higher education, and and this is becoming more common in this day and time. But after you finish college, now that you have your degree, what are some of the plans and some of the things that you intend to do? From a financial perspective as well as like career path perspective. What are some of the things you're looking to
Absolutely.
do within the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, now that I have like an actual real job with a real salary and benefits, I can actually do things. One of the things that I'm currently in a process of doing is building credit. I can now do that. that now that I have a regular job, I'm going to work to build my credit. I'm going to work to get an emergency fund. With what I'm earning now, it's 3 times what I was earning before. I'm able to set aside money each paycheck, and I'm just going to use that to go ahead and get an emergency fund. I'm going to do that. I'm looking to build my portfolio up for graduate school so that I qualify for some scholarships. So that way, grad school doesn't completely break the bank for me. Yeah, so those are some of mine. And then I would say after graduate school, ideally, I would like to have my own production company. So yeah, I
No,
would
that
like to.
sounds great.
Yeah.
And then just pivoting off of what you just said, what are some of the books that you would recommend to people that are, let's say younger kids that are in high school, that are on their way to college, or even college students or people who have graduated? What are some of the books that you have read that have been helpful in your journey of growth?
Honestly, I would recommend, and this sounds very, very funny, but I would recommend reading classics. It could be African, European literature, American literature. It could range from James Baldwin to Shakespeare to Audre Lorde.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah. I was speaking more like from a
I,
contemporary standpoint, though.
if I'm being honest,
Hmm.
I actually think it's best if you just read the classics. If I'm just being
Interesting.
honest, I think, and there's nothing wrong with books that are written today, but I think if you want to be a literate person, stick with the classics. Writing and literature has greatly declined over, as we progress towards the modern era. So I think it's actually best if you know how to read like the classics. Go ahead and read the Odyssey. Go ahead and read the Iliad. But you can also read, you could read James Baldwin, Audre
Right.
Lorde, Toni Morrison. Yeah, so it could be a diverse, but just, classic literature, being
For
able to
sure.
read those things, analyze them, draw comparisons, that type of thing, I think you will be set.
Yeah, no, for sure. And some I would throw in there and make mention of is certain books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Robert Kiyosaki,
Oh, yes.
48 Laws of Power, right? They're relevant to this day and time. Also, another good one is Think and Grow Rich, right? Like these are the types of books that I have read, after leaving college that have helped me with self-development. But yeah, the classics are always great as well. But yep, I just want to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, no, I was listening, y'all. No. Angelique, I'm glad you dug in a little bit right there. I'm smiling. You're there, Angelique.
Yes.
No, I'm glad. No, because like honestly, like I'm not saying Scarcity and I were testing you, but like I got, the other day I put it on, I'm not gonna lie, I put it on IG. I put How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. He talked about Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. What
Seven
was
Habits
this?
of Highly Effective
Yeah,
People.
because you're giving the listener and the audience different type of reading literature that is not spoken about too much today. So I want to say thank you for that. And if you want to expand on it, please do.
Yes, I just think, those, a lot of those books, and there's so many of them, so many of them. I think, being able to read those books, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and there's classic literature amongst all cultures, you know what I mean? Across all races. And I think being able to read those, like actually being able to read them, pick them apart, analyze them, compare, it will drastically increase your literacy, your critical thinking skills, your analytical skills. And I mean, read Aristotle, right? Read Plato, read Dante, read those. It will greatly expand your mind. And I mean, these people's works have been known for thousands of years. If you can read those type of texts that stand the test of time, you can
Yep.
read anything. You're not gonna the type of skills that you would get reading Dante or reading James Baldwin, or reading there's this African classic book called Things Fall Apart. You can look at any culture and see these. You're not going to get that reading a book that an author wrote, in 2023. And that's no shade. It is what it is. We live in a different era where we're heavily reliant on technology, which is not a bad thing. But we are not as our skills when it comes to reading and writing and those analytical, critical thinking. A lot of those things that those people had 2,000 years ago, even 100 years ago, even 70 years ago, we don't have it as much as they do. And that's not a bad thing. It's not. It is what it is. We live in different times, and the human race is evolving into something a lot different. So that is a part of why I do think, that old stuff, that's really going to help you. It'll help you for college. It'll help you for grad school. It'll just help you grow immensely, even if you don't want to go to grad school or college. But also some of the books that you guys mentioned, 48 Laws of Power, the strategies for war, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, how to greatly influence people. Those books, which are classics too. Yes,
Right.
everyone should read those. Everyone should read those.
Yep. Reading is fundamental.
Yes.
And I have one question, and I'll let Jake jump in with the next question. But one question just off the top, I was thinking about, speaking to you is great. It's that natural flow, like you said, on Clubhouse. I love that. That's one of the things I do like about Clubhouse is the ability to meet new people and flow. I'm just curious, though, what is it that made you go to college versus taking a different path? Because a lot of people I talk to now, they're like, oh, I'm going to get the certificate, or I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to be an MUA. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna do my own thing, run my own business, get an LLC.
Mm-hmm.
What made you take the tradition? Because that's really a traditional, non-contemporary. Most people don't want to go to college, right? They don't want to spend 2 years or 4 years or 6 years or 8 years studying in a school because they feel like that degree doesn't have the value it had in the past. What
Mm-hmm.
made you make that decision to actually still go to a traditional, college?
That's a very good question. And low key, I feel like this connects to my appreciation of the classics, the classic literature. I love being a student, and I have a love for education. I have a love for the liberal arts. A lot of people see college as purely economic opportunity. This is a degree that can help me get a job or elevate economically. As far as me, I value the education. I love being a student. I love sitting in class with other students, having a professor pick our brains apart because we're reading about the feminist movement prior to colonialization in West Africa. And then we're reading, what happened after, the colonialization occurred, how the feminism shifted. I love, learning about the Conservative Party versus the Democratic Party, but a little bit deeper than what they covered in, pre through 12. I love education. I love being a student. I have an appreciation for the liberal arts, and I have an appreciation for academia. And I think that's a part of why I went to college and even why I am pursuing graduate school.
Angelique, hello, Angelique.
Yes.
You got a special guest here that decided to stop by last minute, as he
Hey,
always.
Wes.
And Wes, hello, Mr. Wes. This is All Motion.
Hey, Angelique, what's up? Scarcity and All in Motion. Jacob, what's going on, guys?
Hey.
Peace, peace,
And you
love
know
and
what?
light. So,
You love and light. Yo, you're absolutely correct. What you just said about, learning and the fact that you love, just absorbing information, like that's what the body was designed to do is, receive and continue to learn. That's what stimulates us. That's what continues to make us grow. And I was telling Jacob just prior to this before, it's like, I spend my time now, like you just said, like researching and learning about all the stuff that's happened in history and the different movements that are changing, and also forming new movements that again we recognize, again whatever is happening in the world today, right? Because you go to school and being in the classroom with your other students and peers and having a teacher that can actually pick your brain and make you think like critically about what is actually happening right now and what can we actually do to change course, or maybe create or develop a system to be better for the youth, because we understand that there's been a squeeze, like even though there's all this good stuff out there, there's been a squeeze and it's been more difficult for us to advance economically, right? You can see all around the world what's happening. So it's like you talk about these movements and like this is what ties into like the real big picture of like how we can all come together now, knowing that again we've created all these different types of structures, and now how can we use them to benefit mankind so that way we can economically grow, but also grow together. So we're always continuing to learn, because there's never one day that we stop learning, because the world is always changing. And as the world changes and as we continue to grow, like in terms of population, there's always going to be new challenges. And every day is going to be a challenge, whether it's food, whether it's famine, whether it's poverty, whether it's like shelter, natural disasters, again, all these different things that affect everything. So yeah, just want to say that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I understand that, some people may feel that a college degree isn't worth it, because of the debt, because of this, because of this. I will say this, I think college should be more accessible and affordable, but college is worth it. It is. And I think the liberal arts education, although, a trade program, it'll give you a skill so you can make some money, you can get into a profession, which is great. But I do have an appreciation for the liberal arts education, because it helps you become a better human being. It helps you become aware of yourself, of others, the world. It helps you see things from other perspectives. It changes you as a person. And I do think there has to be a balance between the two. So I personally, I always recommend, college. Now you can do it in a way that's affordable to you, if money's an obstacle, be strategic, be wise. If you're not able to go to college because you can't afford it, you can become your own, you can become a student of your own, right? Aristotle, Plato, James Baldwin, F. Scott Fitzgerald. You can go read all of those people from the library, your local library. That could be your university if you're not able to attend one due to finances. You could go to a public library. You could go to museums. There's so many different ways you can indirectly get that liberal arts education. I encourage it in the classroom. If there's obstacles that, prevent you from doing that, find it elsewhere.
Oh, Angelique, you're wonderful. As we wrap it up, those that are in school, higher education outside of high school, we see, the American government, just speaking about the United States specifically, has talked about, paying off debt for students that have been in school the last 10 to 15 years. But the question I have for you, someone like the experience and everything that you shared so eloquently and so, you've been very transparent, and I appreciate that. We all appreciate that. What would you say to a student that, is in a similar situation, in a program like you're doing? It's like, what? I'm not making really money doing this. I'm actually paying money and I want to quit. What would your advice be?
I would advise to stay in school. I would advise to stay in college. However, I do think the way that some people go about obtaining their college degree, that could be, changed. For example, you could start off at a community college. I've known plenty of current students, and this is no shade to them, but sometimes they pick colleges like they pick their favorite candy, right? Maybe community college, which is a lot more accessible. Maybe you should start a community college, right? Stay at home with your parents or stay at home with your family and work. And then you can transfer to a state school. Some people don't do that. Some people want to go to some people want to go to a private school that's 4, 8 times the amount, right? And they don't have the money. Some people, they don't apply for scholarships. They don't apply for financial aid. So the school that I went to, Ohio State, they just did this. I think it was about 4 years ago. If you are Pell Grant eligible and you're a low income student, you don't have to pay for college tuition to attend Ohio State. And you're not required to live on campus your first 2 years. You can actually stay with your parents. Now, there were plenty of students that, who went to my high school that took advantage of that. Other students, not so much. They were like, oh, Ohio State's a public school. I don't want to go to a public school. I want to go to a private school. So they chose to go to, a school like Otterbein, which was, it's a private liberal arts, but it's expensive. And they ended up having to take out a lot of loans to attend. You had some other students who they didn't fill out their financial aid applications on time. So because they didn't fill out their applications, they didn't turn in their financial aid and applications on time, they missed out on getting that tuition waiver. So I've seen a lot of students, if I'm just being honest, they don't make wise financial decisions when it comes to obtaining the education. I think they look at the trees and they don't see the forest. So that is my advice. If you're a student, you're like, oh, college is expensive. Maybe you could transfer to your local state college. Most local state colleges, they have some type of tuition discount. So, they have those types of things. Maybe you could go to a community college for the first 2 years to where you could work. Maybe while you go to a community college or you go to your local state college that's pretty cheap, you could work for FedEx, you could work for Amazon. There's a lot of companies these days to where if you work with them while you're in college, they actually will pay for your college. FedEx does it, Amazon does it. I believe there's a whole bunch of other companies that do it too. Work for them. I think McDonald's does. I think they're just now starting to do something like that. Chipotle does it. There are plenty of companies that will help you pay tuition, whether you attend a 2-year university or 4-year. So some people, they need to research and figure out what's available to them and what they can take advantage of. But I don't recommend you just quit. There are plenty of economically efficient ways to obtain a degree. Some people are not aware of them. Some people are aware of them, but they still choose to make bad decisions. And as for career, I would recommend you pick a career that you feel you would be financially comfortable in. I don't think college is responsible for people ending up in low income jobs. I think you just have to be careful of what you aim for. You need to have a plan. For example, I know some people who went to college and they majored in theater. A lot of people will say like theater, you can't get a career in that. But there are a lot of people who majored in theater, but they actually are working in the industry and they're doing fine. But they had a plan. They did internships. They did research on how to get into that industry. They formed connections, right? There's other kids who major in software engineering, STEM, business, science. If you go to grad school, if you do like biology, chemistry, physics, as long as you go to grad school, you're fine. Political majors, liberal arts majors like political science, economics, and stuff, as long as you have a plan, like say you want to go to law school afterwards or you want to go into academia, all you have to do is figure out what you want to do and come up with a plan and follow through. You should be fine.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. As we prepare to close out this beautiful interview, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what are some of the things we can expect, from you in the future? Like, what are some of the things you have planned in terms of, that maybe we could have people reach out to you, people that are young entrepreneurs or people that are on that path that you're on, which is a successful path, right? Do you have you share like your Instagram, if you have a TikTok, like, could you share like your contact information where people can reach you?
Yes, well, I currently don't really have those things running, but they should be soon. However, I can tell you what I will be working on pretty soon, and that's content
Sure.
creation. I will be working right now, I'll be tweaking a screenplay, and pretty soon I'll be looking to do a short film. So that's something. And then also I'll be looking at, a couple weeks from now, I'll be looking to help you guys out with, interviewing and helping you guys with the shorts and stuff like that. So you may see, for the listeners of All in Motion, you may see some of my contributions as well. I'll be doing that. I'll be working on getting the YouTube, getting the TikTok, and all of that started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. So I appreciate it. I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you to Jacob, as usual, myself, Scarcity, Wes, for joining us. Appreciate that as well. And the whole, All in Motion staff and team. And anything you want to say before we close out here, Jacob?
Oh, man, I appreciate you. Appreciate Angelique. I thank you for your time, Wes. I appreciate that. It was a pop-up, but we love it. We're growing, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, and one quick thing before you guys end, I do have an Instagram. Somehow forgot about that. It's Cinema Angel, so it would be CIN3MA_ANGEL. So yeah, I'll close out with that.
Sounds great. We appreciate it. This is on behalf of All Emotion. Peace, love, and light, and we'll talk to you soon.
Wow. Thank you again, Angelique, for sharing part of your story. We look forward to hearing you back here on AIM. Also want to thank a special guest, surprise, Mr. West, Farmer John, for stopping by All in Motion. Please be sure to check out our website. It's up, allinmotion.com. Yes, And please leave us some feedback or comments. Greatly appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jake from AIM. Take care and be safe.